Look up at the towering glass canopy of the modern financial district, a glittering monument to human ambition and hierarchical dominance. To the untrained eye, these 40-story artificial mountains are habitats ruled by the ultimate apex predators of our economy. We are conditioned from a very young age to view the creatures trapped inside these transparent cages as the absolute pinnacle of evolutionary success. But what if the entire structure of this concrete jungle is based on a profound, deeply ingrained biological optical illusion? You are certainly not alone if you have spent your entire life believing that the corner office is the safest, most powerful place in the world. But the reality of this ecosystem is entirely different, and it challenges every assumption we make about freedom and survival. Two essential mysteries remain hidden in plain sight, perfectly camouflaged by the dazzling reflection of the morning sun against the pristine glass facade. First, why are the creatures who physically maintain this towering hive actually living with far less anxiety than the directors trapped inside?
And second, what happens to our understanding of power when we realize the true apex predator never even steps foot in the boardroom? I must ask you a rather direct, perhaps uncomfortable question about the artificial enclosure you might be sitting in right now. How many precious decades of your short, biological lifespan are you willing to sacrifice just to prove your worth to a corporate system that views you as entirely replaceable? Feel free to defend the necessity of the exhausting corporate rat race in the comments below, because the ways we justify our own captivity are absolutely fascinating to observe. We humans have a strange, self-destructive habit of judging the genetic fitness of our peers by the tightness of their tailored suits and the elevation of their desks. We recoil from those who perform the physical labor of maintaining our habitats, dismissing them as the bottom feeders of the economic food chain. We pull away from the damp smell of industrial soap and the sight of heavy, utilitarian ropes, completely missing the elegant biological function at play.
But before you dismiss the unglamorous reality of buckets and squeegees, I invite you to look a little closer at the magnificent architecture of this hidden wealth. You are standing on the bustling, chaotic pavement of the city sidewalk, breathing in the cold morning air as you tilt your head upward. Your feet are firmly planted on the ground, far removed from the sterile, artificially pressurized atmosphere of the executive suites hovering hundreds of feet above. From this quiet vantage point, you are a master naturalist, observing a massive, transparent ant farm humming with frantic, desperate energy. You watch the directors and vice presidents pacing back and forth behind the thick glass, clutching their digital devices like vital lifelines in a turbulent ocean. They are performing the exhausting, never-ending dominance displays required to maintain their precarious positions within the highly unstable corporate hierarchy. But right outside that same pane of glass, separated by mere millimeters of engineered silica, an entirely different biological process is unfolding.
Your specialized team of technicians is suspended on high tensile ropes, descending the sheer vertical cliff face of the building with the grace of specialized alpine predators. To the executives inside, these workers are practically invisible, dismissed as mere background elements in the grand, sweeping theater of their important daily routines. But you understand that these technicians are the vital symbiotic organisms that literally keep the transparent facade of the corporate world from clouding over with urban decay. They are the dedicated cleaners of the reef, quietly removing the accumulated grime of the city while the larger, louder fish fight for territory inside. The tools of this specific trade are brilliantly simple, utterly devoid of the complex, fragile technological dependencies that plague the modern office worker. There are no proprietary software platforms to crash, no endless strings of passive-aggressive emails to navigate, and absolutely no artificial intelligence threatening to render the process obsolete. The entire operation relies on the undeniable, fundamental forces of nature, utilizing nothing more than water, specialized detergent, and the constant, reliable pull of gravity. Yet, this beautifully primitive biological mechanism generates a staggering $22,000 a month in pure, unadulterated, and perfectly silent revenue. Perhaps you are sitting there right now, crossing your arms and thinking to yourself, why should I care about washing windows when I could be building a tech startup? That is an incredibly valid, perfectly natural question for an organism conditioned to chase the flashing neon lights of venture capital and social prestige. But we must understand that the most resilient, indestructible forms of life on this planet do not rely on constant, frantic innovation to ensure their survival. An ancient crocodile does not need to download a software update. It simply waits in the murky water for the inevitable arrival of a thirsty herd. Your window cleaning business is that ancient, perfect predator, capitalizing on the absolute biological certainty that tall buildings will always, inevitably get dirty.
Let us take a moment to closely examine the behavior of the senior executive trapped in the corner office on the 38th floor. He is earning a substantial salary draped in fine Italian wool and commanding a team of dozens of anxious subordinates who hang on his every word. But his entire survival depends on a fragile, invisible web of shifting corporate alliances, quarterly earnings reports, and the unpredictable whims of a distant board of directors. If the market takes a sudden downturn, or if a younger, more aggressive rival challenges his territory, his entire artificial ecosystem could collapse in a single afternoon. He is a high-strung, incredibly vulnerable thoroughbred, constantly terrified that he will be sent to the slaughterhouse if he fails to win the next race. Now, contrast that fragile existence with your position, standing quietly on the solid, unforgiving concrete of the city sidewalk. You are the sole, undisputed master of an unglamorous but incredibly dense financial architecture that requires absolutely no performance, no tie, and no desperate networking.
You do not need to attend stressful, deeply pointless meetings where anxious primates try to speak over one another just to prove they exist. Your position in the social hierarchy of the city simply does not matter because your power is rooted in the control of necessary physical infrastructure. The executives inside the tower are desperately spending their health to prove their importance to the system, while you simply send that system an invoice at the end of every month. The daily operation of your enterprise plays out like a high-stakes, vertical survival thriller against the massive, unyielding forces of the elements. Your crew steps over the edge of the roof, committing their entire physical weight to a few woven strands of synthetic fiber suspended hundreds of feet in the air. The wind howls around them, an invisible, chaotic predator, trying to peel them away from the sheer, slippery surface of the glass mountain. Every precise sweep of the squeegee is a calculated strike, a masterful extraction of value from a hostile, unforgiving vertical landscape. They fight the glare of the sun and the biting cold of the high altitude, executing a dangerous biological ballet that the executives inside could never possibly survive. There is a profound, almost poetic irony in the physical barrier that separates your crew from the corporate masters they are servicing. The thick pane of tempered glass represents the ultimate division between the loud, theoretical world of modern business and the quiet, undeniable reality of physical labor. The executive looks out through the pristine glass, admiring the sprawling urban landscape and feeling a temporary, intoxicating surge of dominance and control. But they are completely blind to the fact that their perfect, unobstructed view of the world is entirely dependent on the dangerous, dirty work of the people hanging outside. The glass keeps the executive safe from the howling wind, but it also traps them in a sterile, pressurized cage of their own making. The absolute truth of this ecosystem is that the people who physically maintain the facade of the corporate world are vastly freer than those locked inside it. You have effectively bypassed the entire exhausting theater of corporate dominance, building an empire on the simple, undeniable friction between soap, water, and glass.
If this biological insight into the true nature of hidden capital in societal camouflage has surprised you, please subscribe to our channel to continue exploring with us. Together, we can restore a sense of justice to the natural world, uncovering the silent, incredibly powerful forces that truly shape our modern habitats. We will continue to dissect the illusions of the concrete jungle, revealing the hidden paths to absolute sovereignty that the artificial elites desperately want to keep secret. The psychological armor that comes from this specific brand of stealth wealth is truly a marvel of evolutionary adaptation. When you generate $22,000 a month from a business that society actively looks down upon, you become completely invisible to the scavengers. No one asks to borrow money from the person who manages a team of window washers because the social stigma of dirt and labor provides an impenetrable shield. You are completely free to walk through the world without triggering the competitive, aggressive instincts of the surrounding alpha predators who constantly police their territories. Your unglamorous wealth is the perfect camouflage, allowing you to peacefully hoard your caloric surplus while the rest of the jungle fights over the shiny, empty scraps. We must completely reframe the way we view the damp, soapy buckets, the heavy rubber boots, and the calloused hands of the physical laborer. These are not symbols of defeat in the modern economic game. They are the highly specialized, incredibly efficient organs of a biological system designed to extract massive wealth. Just as a vulture is perfectly adapted to safely consume the decay that would kill other animals, your business is perfectly adapted to consume the decay of the city. You have taken the messy, annoying reality of urban grime and transformed it into a pristine, predictable stream of liquid equity that flows directly into your life. It is an alchemy as old as nature itself, turning the discarded and the unwanted into pure, life-sustaining energy for your hidden colony. As you stand there on the pavement, watching the water cascade down the sheer face of the skyscraper, you experience a rare, profound state of biological zen. The frenetic, anxious vibrations of the city traffic simply wash over you, completely unable to penetrate the deep, oceanic calm of your financial independence. You are not worried about the fluctuating opinions of a board of directors, nor are you terrified of a sudden shift in consumer microtrends. People will always build massive towers out of glass, and the atmosphere will always cover that glass in a layer of obscuring dust and pollution. Your survival is guaranteed by the most fundamental, unchanging laws of physics and urban biology, providing a level of peace that money alone can never buy. The rigid hierarchy of the corporate world is an elaborate, deeply convincing fiction designed to keep the worker ants perfectly aligned and constantly producing. The titles, the corner offices, the restricted executive dining rooms are all merely shiny lures meant to distract the organism from the reality of its captivity. The vice president genuinely believes that his elevated desk makes him an apex predator, completely unaware that he is merely a highly paid, easily replaceable component of a machine. You have stepped entirely outside of this artificial food chain, refusing to fight for a slightly more comfortable spot in the belly of the corporate beast. By claiming ownership of the infrastructure that surrounds the beast, you have secured a position of absolute, unassailable power that requires no validation. The true beauty of this unglamorous biological organism is its incredible, almost frightening capacity for silent, relentless scaling and reproduction. When you secure a contract for one towering glass mountain, the spores of your business naturally drift toward the neighboring peaks of the urban mountain range. The property managers, a deeply anxious species terrified of making incorrect decisions, seek the safety of proven, reliable symbiotic partners to maintain their massive investments. You do not need a flashy marketing campaign or a viral social media presence. You simply need to consistently execute the dirty, dangerous work that no one else wants to manage. Before long, your specialized organisms are clinging to the sides of a dozen different towers, exponentially multiplying your monthly caloric intake without ever raising your public profile. Let us imagine a hypothetical scenario where the senior executive from the 38th floor descends to the street level and stands right next to you on the sidewalk. He is wearing a suit that costs more than your first vehicle, radiating the nervous, aggressive energy of a creature whose entire identity is tied to his public perception. He might look at your comfortable, simple clothing and your focused gaze upon the window washers and feel a brief, misplaced surge of pity for your seemingly ordinary existence. He has absolutely no idea that the silent, unremarkable person standing beside him commands a profit margin that makes his massive corporate salary look like mere pocket change. The true triumph of your evolutionary path is that you feel absolutely no need whatsoever to correct his delusion or expose your hidden, terrifying strength. The climax of this specific biological cycle does not occur in a boardroom, nor does it involve a dramatic negotiation over a mahogany table. It happens in the quiet, completely uneventful moment when the automated banking system processes the massive invoice you generated for your essential services. There is no applause, no commemorative plaque, and no artificial recognition of your profound importance to the daily functioning of the financial district. There is only the silent, satisfying addition of $22,000 to your deeply hidden, heavily fortified personal treasury. This quiet compounding of capital is the true heartbeat of the stealth wealth philosophy, a steady, rhythmic accumulation of power that occurs entirely in the shadows. We now return to the profound mysteries we encountered at the very beginning of our journey into this strange vertical ecosystem. We asked why the creatures performing the physical labor of maintaining the hive live with far less anxiety than the directors trapped inside its transparent walls. The answer is that physical reality, the simple friction of soap against glass, is honest, predictable, and entirely immune to the toxic politics of the corporate terrarium. And we asked what happens to our understanding of power when the true apex predator never even steps foot inside the boardroom of the tower. We realized that absolute power is not the ability to command others from a high chair, but the ability to own the very infrastructure that the high chair sits upon. Consider the deeply fascinating nature of the business-to-business ecosystem, a hidden layer of the jungle where the most massive exchanges of caloric energy occur. When you deal directly with the massive property management conglomerates, you are bypassing the fickle, highly emotional behaviors of the individual retail consumer. You are not trying to convince 1,000 different, easily distracted prey animals to purchase a tiny, insignificant product on a whim. Instead, you are forming a long-term, deeply entrenched symbiotic bond with a massive host organism that absolutely requires your specific biological function to survive. This kind of heavy, industrial-level feeding provides a baseline of financial stability that the flashy, consumer-facing businesses can only desperately dream of achieving. Stand still for a moment and truly absorb the intense, overwhelming sensory data of the urban habitat that surrounds your quiet observation post. You can hear the heavy, rhythmic screech of the city buses, the distant wail of emergency sirens, and the endless, frantic chatter of millions of anxious primates. Yet slicing through all of this chaotic noise is the faint, highly specific sound of the rubber squeegee pulling tightly across the wet, frictionless surface of the glass. It is a clean, sharp, incredibly satisfying acoustic signature, marking the exact moment that urban grime is violently separated from the expensive architecture. To your highly attuned ears, this simple squeak of rubber is not a nuisance. It is the glorious, unmistakable sound of your quiet equity actively compounding. The difference between you and the corporate manager is not merely a matter of differing career choices, it is a profound, irreversible evolutionary divergence. They have specialized their biology to thrive in an environment of artificial scarcity, competing endlessly for the limited, glowing resources offered by their corporate masters.
You have evolved to become an entirely different class of creature, a free-roaming opportunist who builds massive, self-sustaining traps to capture value directly from the environment. They must constantly groom their superiors, carefully monitoring their tone and their posture to ensure they are not cast out of the protective warmth of the herd. You answer to no one but the unforgiving laws of gravity, the chemistry of industrial soap, and the quiet, undeniable math of your monthly balance sheet. There is a deep psychological magic hidden in the simple act of looking out through a perfectly clean, unobstructed pane of glass. The humans inside the tower believe that the clear view of the horizon is their natural right, a permanent feature of their elevated, expensive environment. They rarely stop to consider the incredible, dangerous physical labor required to maintain that fragile illusion of pristine separation from the dirty city below. By providing this essential clarity, you are quietly selling them the very delusion of their own supremacy, allowing them to feel clean, protected, and completely separated from the muck.
You are the invisible guardian of their fragile egos, perfectly content to let them believe they are gods, so long as they continue to pay your massive invoices on time. As the sun begins its slow descent behind the jagged peaks of the city skyline, the glass towers ignite with a fiery, blinding golden reflection. The executives inside begin packing their leather briefcases, their minds already churning with the anxieties of tomorrow's brutal, artificial battles for supremacy. Your crew finishes their descent, their boots touching the solid concrete with the heavy, satisfying thud of a dangerous physical hunt successfully completed. You offer them a quiet nod of respect, a silent acknowledgement of the vital, unglamorous work that fuels your entire hidden empire. You turn away from the towering, transparent cages of the financial district, walking slowly and peacefully back into the comforting, invisible embrace of the ordinary world. The day officially concludes not with a frantic rush to the commuter trains, but with the quiet, methodical packing of ropes, harnesses, and heavy plastic buckets. The towering financial skyscraper, now gleaming and perfectly transparent in the fading twilight, stands as a massive, silent monument to your highly effective biological strategy. The executives will return tomorrow, stepping into their pristine glass cages to resume their desperate, exhausting performance for the watchful eyes of the system. You will wake up with the sunrise, absolutely free of alarms, completely devoid of corporate anxiety, and heavily armed with the quiet, overwhelming power of your unglamorous capital. The jungle will always be loud, dangerous, and brutally competitive. But the true master of the environment knows exactly how to survive and thrive without ever making a sound.